I get it. You want to lose weight and you want to lose it quick. And you've heard about, cutting carbs and the whole ketogenic diet. Obviously, everybody's heard of it. Really, they've just labeled cutting carbs. But in this video, I'm gonna go over and back it up with research as to why you should or shouldn't be doing the ketogenic diet. And if you're in that group of people that I just finished describing, then you're gonna wanna watch this video. What's good, YouTube? It's your boy John Mango, and I'm here representing Beyond the Iron, where I'm looking to take your fitness and your nutrition further so you may change your life forever. What I'm giving to you with these videos is advice, but it's only gonna be as effective as the person following it. So if you listen to the advice, that's one thing, but if you take the advice and actually execute on it, that is another thing that's gonna probably yield you results. But again, keep in mind, it is just advice at the end of the day. Also, if this is your first time coming across my channel, I wanna say welcome. I like to drop tons of fitness and nutrition stuff, meal plans, workout tips, tricks, strategies, everything in between to help you get to your goals faster, more enjoyably. So if that's something that you're interested in, which you should be, then by all means consider subscribing. So this is how I'm going to be breaking down this video. First and foremost, I'm going to go over a brief description as to what exactly the ketogenic diet is. And then I'm going to simply go into how it works, a lot of things to keep in mind along the way. I'm going to go ahead and say who this is best for and who should absolutely avoid it. And as I like to do in a lot of my videos that obviously require more than just my bias to convince somebody one way or another, I'm going to be providing studies cited at the bottom of the description that are going to be backing up a lot of the claims and a lot of the things that I say in this video. So if you want further reference, you can go ahead and check those out below. And on top of that, I also have personal experience using the ketogenic diet. So obviously I will never talk about a subject that I have not either gone through or am educated in myself first. So that is also why I'm bringing you this video and why I believe it makes me credible. I've done the ketogenic diet multiple times and I've come to several conclusions on my own in combination with the research should provide you with some pretty solid evidence and advice for you to run with. One last thing, if you stay until the end of the video, once I cover all that, I want to go and briefly talk about why it's so popular, and also if it's so popular, why does the whole overweight and obesity issue continue to grow? All right, let's go ahead and talk about what is it and how it works. So the ketogenic diet, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is essentially a form of cutting out carbohydrates. Essentially, when you cut out your carbohydrates, this is going to cause your body to rely on ketones. Here's a definition for that, which is going to then become your primary source of fuel. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and get one of these myths out of the way. Just because your body has now switched to technically breaking down and burning fat for fuel, this does not mean that you're melting body fat off, as the claims would have you think, in order to fuel your body, okay? So let's get that one out of the way. I'm going to talk about exactly how you do achieve fat loss with this diet, or better yet, how do you not achieve it? Now, if you have been convinced otherwise on this, the fact that yes, burning ketones now means that you will burn more body fat as fuel, you likely have been following somebody, or you found information from somebody who simply doesn't understand the fundamental principle that actually causes weight loss, and that's always going to be calorie deficit. Now, if you don't believe in science, you may argue this point. You'd still be wrong though. So that's essentially what keto is, okay? We're cutting out carbs in order to revert our body to burn ketones primarily as fuel, because believe it or not, carbohydrates are simply non-essential to an extent. The reason I say to an extent is because it is literally impossible for you not to consume at least 1 gram of carbs throughout the day. But regardless, you simply don't need nearly as many carbs to survive as you do the other 2 macronutrients. And of course, cutting a massive amount of one macronutrient out completely is going to lead to a calorie deficit, correct? Unfortunately, some other issues may arise in the process. Now, I'm going to quickly segue into my points on keto and exactly why it is or isn't effective for most people by simply telling you my experience with it first. So I'm not going to go into a whole story about this, but essentially I bulked up one time. I've been through many bulking and cutting phases phases in my lifting career. And the first time that I decided to diet down seriously and cut roughly 20 to 30 pounds of body fat, I decided to give the keto route a try, because at the time it was just something that was still kind of fresh and new. Even though it's been around for a while, it was something that was really bubbling up in the industry. I looked at it, I said, hey, this looks like a pretty legitimate, it looks like the real deal, a legitimate way to lose body fat. So I went ahead and gave it a shot. The only carbs that I consumed were from vegetables, okay? So I would get upwards of maximum 25 grams of carbs a day. The rest of my calories are essentially coming from fats and proteins, you know, lots of meat and lots of fat sources, some peanut butter here and there, which would have some trace carbs in it, but lots of cheese. You know what, actually I'm gonna go ahead and put a list of some of the foods that you would be consuming in a higher amount when you're on keto. This is essentially what happened. I stuck to keto for 1 week. Now, within the first 2 to 3 days, I believe it was the third day, I actually remember waking up and feeling quite energized, okay? I had a different type of, I felt mental clarity. And that right there is one of the benefits of ketogenic diet. But again, don't just go rushing out, click off this video, rush out and just start keto because you think, well, that's all I needed to hear. Relax, we want to talk about everything here, but one of the positives I will say was the fact that I felt a lot more clear mentally. I just felt very good. I felt like I was able to concentrate pretty well, even though I was both in a deficit and on very low carbs. The problem arose once I stepped into the gym. So the first workout I did in that gym, I remember, or one of the first or second workouts, I always do heavy compounds. Ever since back then, I've been doing these compounds, bench press, squats. Specifically at the time, I remember going in that day and just having no strength at all. Energy in the gym, performance-wise, suffered greatly. You know, I just attributed it to the fact that I'm in a deficit. My body's probably kind of freaking out right now and all that, so I'll be fine. I'll wait and I'll try again tomorrow, the next day, all that, okay? So we'll go ahead and give it a chance. Obviously, I'm not just gonna quit out after that. Well, the problem continued every session thereafter, and I found myself literally lifting half the weight. I was bench pressing 225 pounds for 5-6 reps. I remember going in and I was able to bench it for maybe 1 rep. And I hadn't lost that much weight just yet. I really just started this diet. So I said, okay, this is not a good sign. Again, I still continued through. I said, you know what? I got to push through this anyway. This is part of the cutting game. I convinced myself. I stuck with it for another week. So it's 2 weeks in ketosis essentially. And it just got worse and worse from there. I started leaving workouts early because my energy was just plummeting halfway through or even before that in my workout sessions. So that is definitely a massive negative side to ketosis, is the fact that you will likely experience very low performance as well as very low energy in the gym. You're gonna have mental clarity on one hand, but in the gym, performance-wise, you're gonna just plummet and it's not gonna be as good. So you gotta kind of weigh out the options in that case. If you want more mental clarity, but you're okay with sacrificing muscle, then maybe this isn't so bad for you. But that is the problem. I sacrificed a lot of muscle. I'd say at least 5 to 10 pounds maybe in that entire cutting phase. I actually eventually switched over to something called carb cycling, where I was essentially in a ketosis-like diet for a few days. I immediately jacked calories and carbs back up to around maintenance, and I repeated the process for a bit. This did kind of help me a lot more with my performance and my stamina in the gym, but the damage was done and I had lost quite a bit of muscle at the time. Don't get me wrong though, I got very lean, but I didn't get as lean as I could have because of that loss of muscle. So again, this is an anecdote, but I want to reiterate something. Study will show, as do other studies that I've linked below, that lower carbohydrates don't actually impact fat loss any more than just simply cutting calories down in general and keeping a more balanced macronutrient approach. Now, that is the first reason, plus the fact that your performance is going to be up much higher if you have more carbs in your diet. Now, this is almost not exempt by anybody. There's going to be outliers out there, and we're looking at maybe 1% of the population that can perform very well still, or even potentially better than if they were to have carbs in their diet. So if they're on keto and they're cutting, they may be the 1%. Unfortunately, some of that 1% may also be the ones that are marketing this form of dieting to you. So now, another thing that I want to talk about is the fact that adherence on a ketogenic diet is extremely low. So this has to be probably the all-time biggest downside of keto. And I urge you to go ahead and run this test either in your head right now or go ahead and ask anybody and everybody who's tried the ketogenic diet. Now I'm going to lay out two likely scenarios as to who and what happened to those people. So first and foremost, people wanted to lose fat real quick and they decided to jump on keto. Now, you're going to have a group of people, and a lot of people typically lose weight very quick. Now, one thing to keep in mind before you're a victim of this thinking is you're going to drop 5 to 7 or potentially more weight on the scale in that first maybe 1, 2, 3, up to 7 days. You're going to drop very fast. Keep in mind one thing, this is not a result of keto or entering ketosis. This is simply a result of cutting in general. When you decrease overall carb intake just slightly, which would be a result of simply restricting calories and being in a diet, you're likely going to drop two things very rapidly in your body before it becomes body fat. That's going to be water retention, so basically subcutaneous water that's floating around your body that your body's holding onto, as well as intracellular water, which is tied to glycogen. So those are the two things that you lose right off the bat when you start any form of dieting, not just keto. So people will start keto and they say keto is amazing. They swear by it, they live by it because they lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Amazing, right? Well, not so fast, because again, do this test in your head if you'd like, or go ahead and ask most people that are on keto, ask them how much more weight they've lost. Of course, there's going to be people that kept losing the weight, but the majority of people that are still doing keto have found that they've hit some sort of unicorn-like plateau that they suddenly have no control over because they're doing keto and the keto is simply not working. The unfortunate fact with keto is this: the ketogenic diet is a form of dieting, but it overlooks the fundamental principle of weight and fat loss. That's going to be a calorie deficit. So you can start keto today. You can cut all of your carbs out, replace everything with fat and protein. The problem with that is that all macronutrients have calories, and in fact, fat happens to be the most calorie dense macronutrient. So just because you cut out the carbs, you cut out the bread, you cut out the wheat, you cut out the cereal, and then you replace it with avocado because it's healthy fats, doesn't mean that your calories are in a deficit still. And if that's the case, you'll be surprised to find out, or unsurprised if you watch this video, that you did not lose any fat or any body weight for that matter. But you may go to the gym and find out that you've lost performance. I'm going to link a study down below that shows the difference in performance when on a low carb diet compared to a high carb diet. Performance is everything when it comes to retaining and building muscle mass. And in that regard, the ketogenic diet is not optimal. Now, one thing I do want to mention is you can continuously lose body fat on keto. Again, I was able to do it for 2 weeks before I decided keto is not a good idea. But what you simply have to do is use keto in combination with the fundamentals to weight loss, which I'm going to outline for you here in a sec. Before I do that, I want to go ahead and mention another downside of keto. Now, remember at the beginning I mentioned in my story that the mental clarity was a lot better when in ketosis? Although that was true, the problem will arise that by cutting carbs completely and having a massive potential drop in energy throughout the day, halfway through the day, you're going to start feeling very lethargic and sluggish. This could be due to using fats as a primary source of fuel, as fats are typically a lot slower digesting and they simply don't result to as quick and as good energy as carbs do. For reference, go ahead and see the fact that no elite athletes like to do ketosis, especially in competition season, because carbs are essential for performance again, and I think that performance is very overlooked when it comes to improving your body composition and improving your quality of life. So following a ketogenic diet along with a deficit for a prolonged period of time could cause some mental fatigue, mental fog, and some bad mood swings, bad hormone imbalances, and that kind of stuff. So it's something to keep in mind that the reason why most people aren't sticking to the ketogenic diet is because first they hit the plateau from completely avoiding the fundamental calorie deficit law that is required for weight loss, but then they simply start not feeling so good. Their workouts start suffering greatly. They start losing muscle. they're not looking much better. And from there, the last thing I have to touch on when it comes to the negative side effects of keto is the following. Once you're in ketosis, it is very easy to get kicked out of ketosis. All you gotta do is simply eat above a certain threshold of carbs and all of your ketosis out the window. Why? Because your body is smart enough to know that it wants carbs for your primary source of fuel. Anyways, let's go back to that. So here's the problem. You're in ketosis, you're losing some fat, you lost that water weight, you're feeling good. All of a sudden, you want to go out to dinner with your friends. You got a family reunion coming up. You could do your best to avoid the carbs as much as possible. That's totally doable for sure. But it's not easy, and if you happen to make a mistake, which is of course human, you could end up kicking yourself out of ketosis, stepping on the scale the next day, and out of nowhere you don't realize you just retained all the glycogen and water that your body is desperate to grab onto from those carbs that you ate the night before. Just like that, motivation will drop, adherence will then drop, and your chances of continuing through and seeing that fat loss over time will all have dropped. Last but not least, there's something known as the keto flu, which is actually something I can't speak on because I don't remember experiencing it myself, but I do know that a lot of people do experience the keto flu. This is simply another way of knowing that the ketogenic diet is just not an optimal approach in both the short term and the long term. Now, if short term we're talking 4 days, by all means, do the ketogenic diet for 4 days. You're gonna see some dramatic drops before you hit ketosis. You probably won't get that ketogenic flu, the keto flu, all that stuff, no big deal. But for the sense of a month, 2 months, 3 months, 10 months, 24 months, in other words, how long it's gonna take you to eventually get to your goal, yeah, the ketogenic diet is just not the optimal way because it's simply not sustainable over the long term. Anybody else who argues otherwise in the sense of it being sustainable for more than even 30 days are likely hit a plateau, likely not in the best shape or performance, or they're gonna be one of those outliers that actually respond decently well and keep their performance up while on keto. I wanna quickly touch on what are you supposed to do then? If I can't do keto, what do I do? Well, you can click this video and it's gonna give you a step-by-step guide as to how to cut down and lose body fat and body weight. Very briefly, you gotta do stuff like tracking calories. You gotta follow a more flexible approach for long-term sustainability. You probably should start meal prepping your foods, planning in advance to make your life easier and to save time. And last but not least, you gotta stop looking for the easy way out because that essentially is what keto is. It's the easier way out. One thing to keep in mind is there is one more positive about keto that I almost overlooked, and it's the fact that while you're on keto, and even if you're in a slight deficit, you may be more full between meals. So whereas you have carbs are absorbed much more quickly and broken down quickly in the body. For that reason, in between meals, it's gonna be harder to hold off. Whereas if you're eating lots of high-fat meals, what happens is it slows digestion down quite a bit, and as a result, you're gonna be a lot more satisfied between those meals. So you could argue that that helps with adherence, but it doesn't because again, all those points I mentioned beforehand are just gonna overtake that one potential positive that you'll get from the increased satiety of higher fat meals. So remember, stop looking for the easy way out. If you've come here to find out the easy and quick way for you to lose that fat and lose it just like that, then I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Actually, I'm not sorry because the truth of the matter is this. We all know that there's no easy way. And this is going to cover essentially that last point I want to talk about. If you stayed until this point, I want you to comment down below and say no keto gains to see if you stuck around, or just leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I'd love to know what your thought on this is, what your experience with it is, and we can have a good conversation about that because I'm very curious to know. Last but not least, you're probably wondering, so why is it so popular? Well, one, people do want that easy way out, but two, it's heavily marketed, okay? A lot of people find that ketosis is a very targeted niche of people, or it's a very good niche to be a part of because it's very appealing to most people. So they drop lots of dollars into advertising and marketing it, and essentially it comes out to reaching a lot more people. And again, the misleading information, the fact that we're talking about cutting carbs and not cutting calories as a whole is fundamentally incorrect, because now you're leaving massive room for error in the sense that people might start ketosis and lose no fat or even gain fat off of it due to the calorie intake. And that is essentially why this obesity trend just continues to grow. If keto was the magic and amazing way to diet as it claims to be, or as all those fitness experts claim it to be, then it would probably be a different story, because people would all be following keto. And although the popularity seems to be increasing, a lot of people, again, don't follow keto for more than maybe a month. Most people are not meant to follow this form of dieting. It is simply something that somebody took advantage of one time that said, well, we can put this twist on it and call it a dieting method and make lots of money off of it. And guess what? They did. But I'm here to tell you the truth and the more adherable, safer, practical way for you to lose weight. You can check that video that I linked up there. Go ahead and hit me up in the comments. You can message me on Instagram or direct message me on YouTube. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I hope you all enjoyed this video. That's gonna be it. And again, any other constructive criticism or anything, please leave it in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more weekly fitness content coming here. John Mango, Beyond the Iron. I'm looking to help you make the gains you want, all right? So let's do that, and I'll see you guys in that next video. Thanks for watching. I'm out.